Interactive Fiction Technology Foundation, the nonprofit parent organization behind NarraScope and a bunch of other stuff. In a nutshell, IFTF, which is what we call ourselves, is a charitable nonprofit based in the U.S. and founded in 2016 with a mission to support the technologies and services that enable the continued preservation, study, and growth of interactive fiction in its myriad forms. The first two NarraScopes had a panel called Meet the Board, where the then 5-member IFTF board of directors took to the stage and to talk about what we were all working on, and then we did some Q&A. This year the panel's called Meet IFTF because the organization has grown and matured quite a bit in the 2 years since we last gathered like this, and I'd like to tell you about it. IFTF's founding board was super busy. Starting in early 2015, that's the year before our official founding, we met at least bi-weekly, and we all essentially made a part-time job out of pulling the organization together, launching it, and then running its initial programs. For example, I myself ran IFTF those first few years. This sort of structure is known as a working board, and it's pretty common in baby, very young nonprofits. Last year, we upgraded to toddler status. We changed that by making a couple of major changes. We redefined the board of directors as primarily a strategic and executive oversight body rather than the one doing the organization's day-to-day work. The board's job is now to primarily make sure that IFTF continues to meet its mission, charting the path forward and adjusting the course as necessary. All the day-to-day work is now performed by a steering council, which largely comprises IFTF's program chairs, as well as the organization's officers, that is, including its president and its treasurer. Over the years, IFTF has become larger than its board, with 9 active public service programs now, the majority of which are not chaired by board members, and that's great. We want the board to be a little bit removed from all that, better able to see the big picture of where the organization as a whole needs to go in order to continue doing its best job supporting interactive fiction technology in a changing world. Our other big change was dramatically increasing the size of the board. We had a very successful recruiting drive for more board members in early 2021, where we focused on diversity of many kinds, personal, cultural, professional, geographical, and creative. That is, we wanted diversity in our directors' approach to and history with interactive fiction and narrative. Because of our new structure, being a board member is a lot less arduous than it used to be. Our minimum commitment for directors these days is only a couple of hours per month, and that's a big change from when we started. And that also makes directorship a lot more tenable for more people. We also instituted term limits, so a director can now serve only 2 consecutive 2-year terms. The idea here is what I call intentional churn, making sure that IFTF's executive body never becomes stagnant. Those term limits mean that our long-term directors, including yours truly, will start cycling out over the coming months, and we're going to hold more board recruiting drives in the near future. So I wanted to say a few words about what a director does. Mostly, you show up. We have a Slack where directors can follow along with organizational activity, and the board meets once a month to talk about it, with each director expected to bring their own energy and perspective. Outside of that, directors have a job that's pretty much common to all nonprofit board members in any organization, that is representing the org when we're out and about and pitching in where possible with fundraising efforts. And on that note, because of those term limits, this is my last chance to do this scope as IFTF president. So, my friends, I would not ask you to make IFTF your first choice in charitable giving, but you have a charity budget, and you have room for it, and you appreciate the work that IFTF does, whether that's events like this, or the annual IFComp, or supporting technologies like Twine or IFDB or the IF Archive, among others, I hope you consider us. IFTF is supported almost entirely by donations from individuals. Those donations pay for the digital infrastructure that our programs use, and also pays increasingly, more often lately, the experts, consultants and artists and lawyers that help our programs bring you their best work. We are a 501c3 nonprofit, which means that donations are tax deductible. We're allowed by law, and IFTF is on various corporate matching charity lists as well. You can learn more at iftechfoundation.org/give. Thank you very much. So, with that out of the way, let's meet some folks. I know a lot of the board is here today, as well as a bunch of program directors, and I'd love folks to introduce themselves, talk for a couple of minutes about how they got involved in IFTF, and with program directors especially, what you and your program does within the organization. And then after that, we should have some time for questions and answers. And that's all my slides. So I'm going to, in my role as president, literally my main function is to preside over meetings, and I'm going to do that here. And I have a alphabetical by first name list of names. So let's start. So I've mashed together all of the board members and program leaders here today. And I'd like to start with Andrew Plotkin. Say a little bit about your role at IFTF and what you do here.
Yes, I'm alphabetically first because I'm called Zarf. Okay, I'm not going to talk a whole lot about my history. You know my face. I've been introducing things for the past 2 days. I'm one of the founding members of the organization, which means that I am also in my last term as a board member. And as we roll into new people, we will have more people who are not me and JMac. I am also the treasurer of the organization. That is not a term-limited role. That's an officer role. But again, I would like to start the process of finding someone to do the job who is not me, because doing a job forever is a recipe for doing it badly. And just briefly on programs, I run the IF Archive Committee, which basically just keeps the IF Archive up and works out interactions with IFDB and so forth. And my treasurer role means that I also pay attention to money on other committees, running the IFCom fundraiser, handling money for NarraScope and all stuff like that. And I'm on the NarraScope committee, and this long list of jobs is why we have term limits, because I have too many jobs. End of presentation.
Thanks. I see Chris is here. Could you step up to a chair, please? Look at you go. That's great.
Hello. Yeah, I'm Chris Clemeth. I guess I am second alphabetically. I am not on the board, just to be clear. I used to be, but I stepped down. I currently lead the Twine committee at IFTF. And actually, I jumped ahead. My own background with IFTF is that I've been involved with it pretty much from nearly the beginning. I've been working on Twine for quite a while, and at that point when, right around that first time, I was starting to think that Twine needed some sort of organization around it to help make sure that it would continue to exist and thrive like it has been. And then I think coincidentally JMac reached out to me, Jason did, and said, hey, we're thinking about this, would you like to be involved? And so Twine has been, or IFTF has been a really wonderful home for Twine related things, which is actually a good segue into what the Twine committee does. The Twine committee is not involved directly with development of Twine or other pieces of software associated with Twine. We don't make decisions about what features will be included in Twine, what bugs will get fixed next, all that stuff. Instead, what the Twine committee is all about is supporting the bigger community around Twine. So making sure that folks who are doing all kinds of amazing things with Twine get the support that we can offer them, or that IFTF can offer them. And to speak concretely, some things that the committee handles right now, it hosts, or IFTF hosts, the main website for Twine, twinery.org. IFTF also manages the Twine Cookbook, which is a very popular resource for learning how to do stuff with Twine. So we handle both the source code repository that powers that section of the website, but also manages how do we, when contributions come in, how those are handled, those kinds of things. Some other recent work included, we created specs for things that Twine does or things that are related to Twine, what they do, so that we have formal descriptions of when you create a Twine story, what does that look like? And what the reason why that this fell under the purview of IFTF is that it allows other people to interoperate with Twine much more easily, so that we can be explicit about how do you, if you want to incorporate Twine into some other engine or something like that, you can look at those specs and learn. And I guess it's just to close out my section, a little preview of something that we're working on right now is that we are trying to, it's going slowly, but we're making progress. We're trying to get various certificates created so that when you run Twine, you no longer get a scary warning from your operating system that says this app is not signed, it will kill you and your family. This is not an easy problem to solve, it turns out, but I'm really excited about solving it. And the other thing that I want to point out with this process is that I'm hoping that what we figure out for Twine is something that we can also do for other IF-related tools, because I think that other IF tools have faced these same kind of problems. And I think that's it for me.
Thanks, Chris. Dan?
All right, I think I'm audible.
You are audible.
Okay. I'm Dan Fabulich, and I chair the IFDB committee. IFDB.org is a website where we've got database information about all sorts of works of interactive fiction. And we, IFTF adopted IFDB from its creator, Mike Roberts, last year in 2021. It had been on, I'm going to call it a feature freeze for quite some time prior to that, and we did a bunch of work over the last year, cleaning up stuff, fixing stuff, substantially improving the performance of the site, improving the list of top games so that it's sorted by something rational, and we also made sure that the vast majority of games are now possible to play online. So you can just navigate to 98 of the top 100 games on IFDB, and there's probably going to be a play online button, which is way easier than the thing we had before, which was a download advisor, which would try to talk you through, well, if you're on Windows, but if you're on this version of Windows, you're going to want to download this kind of interpreter, and then download this file, and then from within, you can just click the button and immediately start playing. We've got some more work to do this year. We're hoping to substantially improve our the mobile view of IFDB. It kind of sort of works right now, but I think there's a lot more we could do. And of course, we just need more games to appear in IFDB. I think I'll leave it off there. Thanks.
Thanks, Dan. That's fantastic. Yedidia? As she worked her way over past the piano. Oh, it's acrobatics there.
Yes, hi everybody. I wasn't sure if I could climb over the piano or not, so but I'm here now. Okay, good to see you all. My name is Yedidia. I am from Amsterdam, the Netherlands originally, and I am one of the newer board members. I am a writer, narrative designer, and actually the very first thing I made that was interactive was made using Twine. So that's how I also got to meet the organization that I am a board member of now. I have a background in theater and have worked my way into the gaming industry and still make hybrid stuff as well, which is also one of the reasons I wanted to join the board, because I think that we have a lot of tools, a lot of knowledge that should be available to as many people as possible, not just in the gaming realm, but in the whole creative realm as well. Because I found that as a writer with not a lot of programming knowledge, it was awesome to see what I could actually do and what I could experiment with. I'm extremely happy to also see here at NarraScope that there are so many talks that are on that hybrid level of making interactive fiction in any way, shape, or form made by people with very diverse backgrounds. So that's something that really interests me and that I try to advocate by being on this board. I am also on the NarraScope committee, so you've seen me walking around here and on Discord answering questions and doing the Twitter. I think that are the most important things that I'm currently working on. So yeah, that's it for me.
Yeah, thank you so much, and thanks for your help on the Discord, sort of the official side channel for NarraScope, which I only just now learned about in school. Judith?
Hi, I am also in my last term on the board. I was not one of the founding board members. I was a second gen, I guess. I'm second gen board member, but still due to cycle out. I was briefly the secretary, I think, for a year or something. And then I created the education committee, which was more appropriate to me. So the reason that I joined the board is that I have a commitment to the IF community, which is pretty old. I've been writing IF since the 80s and teaching IF since the early 90s. And teaching IF has been as important to me, more really in many ways than writing it myself. I'm very excited about the edges of IF, using it in non-traditional ways and in non-traditional configurations. I'm interested in collaborative coding and IF sandboxes, and anyway, it was a natural for me to create the education committee. And the education committee supports educators. So it's what Chris said about the Twine committee. It's not the job of the Twine committee to fix Twine. It's they support the community around Twine, and it's like that. Our job is not to educate the public about IF, it's to support the educators, to support the people who are educating the public about IF. And although at NarraScope you will see us doing direct service, right? So we are directly offering workshops. That's NarraScope. The bigger vision and mission of the committee is to try to figure out what it is that educators need and how IFTF can provide that. Among the things that we hope to be doing this year is to start inviting people to affiliate, not kind of affiliate, to affiliate with the education committee if you're an educator, and so that we can provide community a little more effectively through a variety of means. One of our ideas, for example, is to collaborate on a better curation of games that are tagged in a way that is useful to teachers, so that if you teach 8th graders, you teach 8th grade girls, you teach 8th grade girls physics, that you can really easily find an IF that works for you, so a work that works for you. So that was a conversation, that was an idea that came up in a town hall that we had on Friday. We had an educators town hall, and we hope to have more events like that where educators come together and talk about what they need, what they use, and how they use it. So that's pretty much what EdCom does. We're not really providers so much as supporters. So yes, please feel free to message me if you're an educator and want to become involved, or just come chat to me in the in-between. But private messaging me is good. You can private message me on Discord too after NarraScope is done.
Yeah, thank you so much, Judith. And I like your summary of most of what we do at NarraScope is not, it's sort of like support class. It's enabling rather than directly creating. So I like your summary of don't teach about IF, but we enable other people to teach about IF. And that's kind of our angle in pretty much everything we do. I saw Justin running around in the background. Are you able to talk a bit while also running the conference?
Yes, hi, I'm Justin. I am this year's chair of the NarraScope committee, which means that everything that the sun touches in this room is my domain. I can do things like troubleshoot your issues with the conference or spawn a piano while other people are talking. The conference committee's job is to run this conference, which you all know about. So I don't have a lot to say compared to everybody else, because if you're here, you know what we're doing. And looking forward to the future of conference committee, I don't know, because we're still in the middle of this one, but I suspect there will be a conference in the future at some point. That's all I've got.
I like your, thank you. Get back to work. I think you left your brain on the table in a jar. You might need that for later. And there he goes. Justin Bortnick, everybody. He makes it all possible. Okay. Liza.
Hi, everybody. My name is Liza Daly. I have been a part of IFTF since 2018. Like some other folks, this is my last term as a board member, but I am also the vice president of IFTF, which is a new role we created as part of this expansion and continuity effort. I am also the secretary, and I'm on but do not run the communications committee. So if you've received a newsletter from IFTF in the last couple of years, I probably compiled that. My day job currently is I'm a technologist in residence at Harvard University in the Library Innovation Lab, and part of what I'm doing there is actually maybe the closest I've been to IF in my job, which is focusing on digital preservation, not specifically of games, but increasingly as a lot of IF is on the web, that's closer to what I'm doing as research currently. And yeah, I don't run a specific committee, so I mostly try to bring my background in like management and other board activities to help IFTF grow.
Excellent, thank you. Lydia? Lydia, no audio from you?
Can you hear me now?
There you go. Great.
Double muted myself just to make sure. People earlier in my other talks will know what that joke's about. So thank you, everyone. You've probably all seen my face before as I'm on the NarraScope committee, and I've been sort of chaotically and nervously introducing other talks and giving questions. I am one of the new board members that came onto IFTF, so I'm really excited to be here. I also apply sort of a light touch with the Twine committee, and I'm also with NarraScope. I am probably the least experienced and therefore the least interesting person you could talk to on this board and in this community. I did my degree in creative writing at the University of Essex in the UK, where I'm based. Super interested in sort of interactive fiction and sort of these different sort of paths you can go through literature. I ended up specializing in science fiction. I then moved to Japan to teach English, but then got involved with international relations outside of the government branch while I was there. When I moved back to the UK in 2019, I then joined a market research company, YouGov, a sort of large multinational company. And then COVID hit, and I ended up working on COVID-19 research, looking at sort of behavioral and opinion research that was coming in that went to sort of guide the government on their response. And since then, I've worked with political leaders around the world. I've worked with the German Democrats. I've worked with Biden's campaign. I've done some stuff for some of the Spanish governors as well. So just lots of mixed bags of different stuff. I joined the committee both in sort of a professional sort of interest. Obviously, part of online research is that you sort of curate this online community that you reach into and understand people's opinions of what they think. And I'm really interested in using sort of IF in fiction and sort of games to re-engage that community and sort of give something back to them. Something they're always giving us, you know, their data and their interests and their opinions, which I love. And it would be so nice to give something back to that community through IF or other means. That's something I'm working on. And in a personal capacity, I don't know if any of you have found the same experience, but I found the last sort of 3-4 years really tough to write in. It just seems like it's been sort of permacrisis after permacrisis. And there's sort of moments when you sit down and think, like, what is the use of what I'm doing? Like, I feel like I've sort of been in economic firefighting mode for a couple of years. But joining the committee was part of my sort of drive to re-engage with that community, and especially seeing actually all the people at NarraScope and outside of that community, all the stuff that you're producing and all the magic that comes through the fiction that you're making is so inspiring. So just part of being here is really nice, and I love being here and being part of this community. So thank you again, everyone, and fingers crossed I will be here for a while.
Thank you. We're all very glad you're here and you're very young. So let me just disagree with your first point there. Kofi? You're silent as well, I'm afraid. Remote conferences.
We have had some tech issues before, so Kofi, no pressure. You can't get your mic working. We can switch the order if needs be. Kofi is saying switch, so I reckon we move on.
Okay. Shall I just, I sort of skipped my own introduction, so oh.
Jacqueline also.
Jacqueline, yes. We missed some J people. Let's move in Jacqueline, please.
Hello. Hi, everyone. So I am Jacqueline Ashwell. My pronouns are she, her, and I am unable to be on camera today because I am in the middle of moving in an unlit room on a cloudy day in an empty apartment. It's a little sad, but I am happy to be here with you all. I've been the organizer of the Interactive Fiction Competition since 2018, and I came into that role because I was approached by Jason, presumably because I'd been organizing a different competition called Intro Comp for about 15 years prior to that. And I'd like to take just a very brief moment to plug that prior comp because I stepped away from Intro Comp. I handed it off to my friend Nelson, who has been doing an excellent job. Though his career in the game industry has really, really taken off. Nelson, I don't know if you're here in the audience, but yeah, it's pretty amazing. And he very graciously gave the competition back to me because he, like me, really cared about it. We don't want that little comp to go away. It's amazing. And so I will be working with IFTF to find a new steward for the intro comp later this year, probably over the winter in the Northern Hemisphere. And running a smaller competition like Intro Comp is a really, really great way to build project management skills and to build up to something more complex like running the interactive fiction competition. So if that is an opportunity that you might be interested in, please do drop me a line. And unfortunately, due to the move, I'm not going to be around the conference, the rest of the conference, but you can email me at the Interactive Fiction Competition email, which is ifcomp@ifcomp.org. Just go to the website and it's linked there. And just let me know of your interest. We're going to be doing a formal search for an organizer over the winter, but I will make sure that if you let me know that you're interested, then you will be in the loop when all of that gears up. But yeah, back to Interactive Fiction Competition. Most of you are probably very familiar with it, but it is the oldest continuously running competition in the video game space. It's been around since the mid-90s. I am really, really honored and privileged to be its 5th organizer. and we're gearing up for another great year here in the fall. That's me.
Thank you so much, Jack, and thanks for making the time to drop by when you are, as you say, literally mid-move, cross-continent plus island, without giving away too much of your location. So that's pretty great. Okay, I hear Kofi's audio is back.
You can hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, that's good, because I was like, maybe it's because you did the reverse alphabet, right? Because K comes before L, but yeah, so maybe it was just a bit of that. But hi, everybody. I am Kofi. I am from Montreal, Quebec, Canada, so I do speak some French and all that. In terms of what I do a lot of random stuff. You can call me experiential storyteller, creative coder, performative poet, and whatnot. And that's actually what drew me to IFTF, because I do interactive fiction, but I also do like what I like to call deconstructed interactive fiction. And if you want to know more about that, it's basically like interactive fiction, but like performance. So when I saw the call, I'm like, oh, it would be cool to see like-minded people, but also bring a bunch of randomness and experimental stuff. Because I do believe that as we get older, we tend to ignore play, and I am all about play and experiment. And I do want to bring that passion of like letting other people know they can also play and experiment. Because like mentioned before, interactive fiction is more than interactive fiction, right? Like the same tools can be used for like interactive nonfiction, or maybe used for performances, right? Who says that poets can use it to enhance their digital scape? Who says that coders cannot use it to give a little more flair on user testing and all that? So that's the type of stuff that I am interested in, and hopefully throughout the many months and years that I do spend on the board with all the other new members and even old members, hopefully we get to that goal. And then there's some other plans that I do have in mind. So yeah, and I do welcome anyone also. If you do have random ideas and experiment, there's no idea for me that's too random or too experimental. All of it can work. So that's basically what I have to say.
Thank you so much, Kofi. I apologize for the alphabetical chaos, but as you say, I think the interactive narrative anyway, yes, I was getting interactive with the alphabet, put it that way. Sure. Let me say a word about myself, because I forgot to put me in there too. Hi, I'm Jason McIntosh. You can call me JMac. I've been involved in IF for quite a long time. I last wrote some games. Let's see. Here's how I like to put it. I've been running interactive fiction events or organizations for the last 8 years between IF and IFTF. Last game I made was published 8 years ago. Therefore, I am very much looking forward to my retirement as my term comes up within the next year. And yeah, this has been to quote what Jacqueline was saying just earlier, it has been a fantastic honor and privilege, both to, like, I guess, be the fourth IF Comp organizer, and then to be a co-founder of this organization. And honestly, just to see it succeed at becoming something not just larger than me, but larger than its initial founding board, and larger than its board at all. And I know that it will be one of the greatest things I will have ever done with my life, was helping to found this organization. And that's all I can ask for. And on that sappy note, that's all I have to say about myself. Did I forget anybody before we go into Q&A? Did I actually manage everybody despite forgetting how the alphabet works? Good. Okay, then in that case, I would like to turn things over to the audience for some Q&A. I do have the chat here open, the text chat. I think that's how we're doing things. Put Q's in here, says Lydia. So yes, that has been confirmed.
Yeah, that's the way I've been doing it before. Guys, we put questions in the chat, and then one of us will bring it up and direct it to the other person. I imagine we'll run it. It's sort of like a panel talk to fill the space while people are thinking. Jason, I'm going to pick on you first. When you were first thinking about starting this organization, can you describe like the moment when you thought like, this is what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to solve this?
Oh, yeah. Here's my canned response to that, which I love telling, is that IFTF came out of a conversation with our legal counsel, Heidi, who we still retain, who was, when I volunteered to take over IFComp from Stephen Grenade, who had run it for 13 years prior to me in 2013. He gave me a list of tasks. He's like, here's some ways that IFComp can improve. One of the ways was really improving its own notion of whether to allow fan fiction, right? Whether to allow, if not, like, what's IFComp's stance on fair use? For its first several years, it was just like, no copyright works, not even anything that even smells like a copyright works. We don't have a lawyer. We don't want to get mixed up in this. No. But we were like, okay, well, we do kind of have a lawyer now. Or at least talking to one. So what should our approach be? And I was speaking with Heidi about this, and she answered that question very well. And it was also like, why aren't you a nonprofit? I don't get it. Like Heidi said, I've started nonprofits on like much lesser things than this. Are you telling me that, wait, so you're a community of all these separate projects that have been around for decades, and you have no way for people to donate you money to support your work? Huh? And it's just not something that had ever really occurred to me or any of the other disparate, like the folks who ran the archive or IFDB or the comp or any of these other sort of Sargasso Sea of interactive fiction community projects up to that time. So really, tip was me thinking about supporting fan fiction in IFComp, and then things get almost immediately out of hand. And here we are today.
Yep, and the rest is history. Excellent.
We like history here at IFTF. It's true.
There was a question in the chat talking from Jason. Will the next NarraScope conference be online? I think Jason has walked off, so I'm going to pass this over to you, Andrew.
Yes. Plans for so typically we start planning each NarraScope around in the fall, like around Thanksgiving. The question of what we do next year is going to depend a lot on what the fall like COVID situation looks like. Do we get a new round of vaccines? Do we get like do conferences start to come back more, or do they start to clamp down because of like massive super spreading events? We're going to spend the rest of the year looking at that and then thinking about what makes sense.
No, that totally makes sense. I remember the decision earlier this year was with COVID, and it was just this, we just thought, better be safe than sorry. And to be honest, with monkeypox going around and sort of all these various other poxes coming out, I think it was smart to be online this year. So thank you everyone who turned up, regardless of it not being in person. Okay, another question from Doug. Are there any programs you are looking for people to help with? So consider this an open call for help if anyone would like to do so.
It's actually, I'm going to jump back in and note, we have a standing open question to figure out how to surface volunteer positions better. Like Jacqueline jumped in the chat and said, I have competency section volunteers. Also, the forum has volunteer moderators. IFTB has volunteer organizers. IFArchive is pretty self-contained at the moment, but has utilized work, it has added projects, added software. And we don't currently have a big bulletin board of people, committees looking for work, but we need that. That's the job of the conference, the communications committee. I bet the communications committee could also use volunteers.
Yeah, my own generic answer to that is Zarf, you mentioned that the forum is looking for volunteers. Also, the forum is where we look for volunteers. So by the forum, we mean intfiction.org, which is one of our programs, and that is the just a forum for talking about all things IF, and there's a sub-forum for talking about all things IFTF in particular. And we encourage like program leaders and others, if they're like, we need some help to do a thing, whether that's volunteer work or even hiring a consultant, we will typically post it there. And we won't leave it there. We'll also put it in the newsletter, encourage people to spread the word. But the forum is a great place to keep an eye on if you're looking for volunteering opportunities with us.
Excellent, thank you. And is there any other place where we're collecting resources that might help new artists or writers in this area to sort of work with the new to them medium that is interactive fiction?
Zark is answering this in the chat right now, and at ifcomp.org, even though that's specific to the annual IFComp, has a ton of resources on it for just general information about like, here's the art form we're talking about in general. Here are hundreds of playable examples, including some that have been chosen by the nature of the competition to be like the best, some of the best representative works over the years by the community that you can browse through and play. So that is a fantastic place to start. And I see Liza is also talking about communications committee activity with a URL there on the forum, and I should let her speak instead of narrating it.
So we do have a communications committee. Like I said, largely has been doing things like sending out the newsletter, but most of the programs that we've talked about here can like really use help in general with outreach, talking to the press. We're all introverts, so it's sometimes hard to find people who actually want to engage with the world at large. So I think what we would really most benefit from on communications is someone who wants to just kind of help organize and bring energy to that, to those needs. And that doesn't mean doing the work. It often means just like pairing up a committee that needs someone who is an expert at running live video and finding someone out in the world who wants to help with that. We do, I don't know if we've really said this explicitly, but all of our committees do have a budget. So this is not entirely about finding people who are willing to work for free. It is often about having volunteers who are part of IFTF like identify projects and find someone and then allocate budget to pay them to do that work. And that's just a case where what we really need is someone to be that kind of connector.
Cool, thank you. Jacqueline, I noticed you were sort of going off in the chat as well if you wanted to speak more on IFComp.
Yeah, I don't remember the exact phrasing of the question, but just advice for someone who is new to the interactive fiction competition and how they might get started. And Zarf and JMac both gave them some good ideas to to check out our website, to play through things that have done well in the past. I think the advice that I would give that's not necessarily written on the website is that it is important to read what's on the website. We have a lot of authors who jump in with a cursory read and then they'll put a lot of work into something and then find out that, because they, for instance, did an open beta on itch, that means their game's been previously released. Now it can no longer be in the IFComp. And, it breaks my heart when we have stuff like that, where somebody's put a lot of work into their game. The other thing that I would probably, so read the rules, write me at ifcomp@ifcomp.org, and yes, I'm going to go ahead and, earlier I had written notes, now I'm just talking off the cuff, so I'm not saying IFComp because it's not written out in front of me. I'm a person who scandalously calls it IFComp, but anyway, that controversy aside. The other thing I would really just recommend is that the games that do well in the interactive fiction competition, many of them, it is true that there are some games that have a really short development cycle and still do exceptionally well. But for the most part, the games that do really well in the interactive fiction competition probably started, like next year's good games have already started. They've already started being written. It takes probably more than a year to do something at the level of scope, attention to detail, beta testing, all of the things that go into making a great game. So, I'm not saying don't do it, but you will have a much better chance of doing really, really well if you start at least a year out, especially if you are new, and not to like have this shift into. There was probably a different panel that I didn't get to go to about how to write your first game, but I guess my biggest piece of advice is, if you haven't written anything before, save your dream idea. Don't make that your first game. Do something else first. Just learn how to make the game, learn how to do the code, figure out how to deal with beta testers and get your work polished, and save that really amazing idea that you've dreamt about for when you've got all those skills in place. That's my advice.
Excellent. That's really good advice as well. It's sort of a similar thing with writing. If you've got a novel idea, don't make that the first thing you ever try to write, because it will sort of die slowly in your hands and you get to grips with the art of writing. So thank you for that. There are a few questions coming through the chat as well, but I did want to just ask my own question to the board as well, which is, what is your favorite interactive fiction game? I'm going to give people a second to think, but then call on Andrew to go first.
I hate favorites questions. Sorry.
Or at least one that you want to highlight, one that's really made an impact on you, one that you've played recently.
Of course, the ones that made an impact on me are the ones that I played when I was a kid. So, Spellbreaker and Portal, the interactive novel from 1986, and The Prisoner, and stuff like that.
Excellent, thank you.
I'll go.
Jamie, sorry, go ahead.
I enjoyed the silence of everybody when you said, what's your favorite? Oh, dead silence. Like Zarf, and I've written about this on my website, and I think Aaron even surprisingly covered it in the part of his book where he talked about my game, The Fire Tower. But Zork was a really formative thing for me, not for the reasons that most people would think, though. I've spent a lot of my career working in environmental conservation and being outdoors, and Zork was actually a big part of that. I loved exploring outside, and I learned to type playing that game, and I learned a lot of vocabulary from that game. Phosphorescent, most 8-year-olds don't know that word. I did, but in modern times, honestly, I think the thing that I find most impressive is Cranier Manor, just because I got to write one room of that, but I think there's over 80 different authors, and just the project management on the backside that went into that for Jenny and Ryan to get all of us volunteered, give all of us the right instructions. It was basically an exquisite corpse game where 80 different authors each contributed a room. We had some parameters, some of which were given by the two organizers to make everything thread together in a bizarrely, surprisingly decent way. And it was just a really impressive piece of work as a whole when you know how it was put together. It is also one of the things that I do completely outside of IFComp, or out of IFTF, is I run a gaming, an interactive fiction gaming group on Sunday mornings. In fact, they're meeting right now. I'm skipping out on them this week. And Sunday morning, Sunday afternoon, Sunday evening, depending on your time zone. And it's the longest transcript we've ever posted out of 15 years of transcripts, because it's just a massive game. So that's my answer.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. People are sort of stepping up, so just feel free to jump in with your own experiences.
I just pasted a link to IFTB and the top-rated games of 2022 so far. In particular, I wanted, rather than harkening back to the games of my youth, I wanted to suggest a relatively new game. One of the award winners for Spring Thing this year, The Bones of Rosalinda, in which you are a skeleton who's been broken up into component parts and use your parts to solve puzzles to acquire your other parts. It's really great.
So my favorite game is an Infocom game, but not one that's usually mentioned. It's Suspended, and I would say that this game was more influential for me in broadening my sense of what you can do with iOS, and that I played it early. In Suspended, you play through a bunch of robots that have different senses. So as you wander, you can send these robots out and they'll give you different sensory information. They're all limited in some way. And you have to sort out what's going on through these different things. It's very cool. It's not a recent game, but a more modern game, I guess, a recent year game is Lime Ergot. Let's see if I can get a link to Lime Ergot. Well, actually, you can just get it on IFTB. This is Caleb Wilson's a game. I think it did win. It was in won something recognized. Anyway, it's a game that I use in teaching a lot. It's really simple game structurally and has real depth. It's a great teaching game. So educator looking for a first game to throw at people that will inspire them to something that they could actually accomplish. I think famously he wrote it in 48 hours. So Jacqueline, on the long development cycle, it is Caleb's amazing for really fast writing, though I think he may have well, I don't know if he did more work on it after it was submitted, but anyway, those are my suggestions. Suspended and Lime Ergot. Let me write this word ergot in here.
Cool, thank you. It's really useful. Guys, just so you know, I don't know if Gather saves chat. So if there is something that comes through that you want to save, click on it and open the tab now, just in case.
Go played Adventure when I was little, right? Everybody did Colossal Cave Adventure, but that's not the one I want to highlight. The one I want to highlight is one that, I don't know, when I was in middle school, Homestar Runner was really popular, and the Brothers Chaps put out a bunch of interactive fiction games in the series Thy Dungeon Man, which introduced a lot of people who are, I don't know, half a generation younger than a lot of people on the board to interactive fiction and text-based gaming. Yeah, I see a lot of Getting Ye Flask in chat. So I wanted to highlight those as definitely something that exposed a lot of people to interactive fiction, and also very funny, and usually you can finish them in 5 to 10 minutes, which is great.
Cool, excellent. Sorry, I'm being quiet because I think someone else tried to cut in. Kofi, was that you speaking as well?
I can go if nobody else wants. Yeah. Just a short example. One of my favorite is What Isn't Saved Will Be Lost by Kat Manning. I've seen her walk around here. I'm not sure if she's here at this moment, but she was a NarraScope speaker before as well. And I'm not going to say anything about the game. It's beautiful. It's emotional. It takes 5 to 10 minutes to play. I'll put the link here and in Discord, and go play it. It's awesome.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, right, I'm going to just, if anyone else wants to pop on and talk about a game they've really loved or they want to highlight while we have the space, please just step up and join. Otherwise, is there anything else from the board that you would like to say as a closing statement before we scatter to the winds and potentially meet again next year?
I guess 2 things. First, folks in the chat are asking about the Club Floyd weekly play group that Jacqueline hosts, and there's information there I highly recommend following up on, because that is another fantastic long-lived event that is worth checking out. And yeah, I suppose, well, I can only just reiterate what I said earlier, in that it's been my privilege and pleasure to see be a part of IFTF since its founding, and I unironically look forward to being a non-director member of it in the not too distant future, and perhaps become a contributing member of the interactive fiction community rather than a mysterious board of directors dwelling, lurking presence. So thank you, everybody, thank you, honestly, to everybody here and even everybody watching this presentation asynchronously for being part of the community, being part of IFTF by your presence, and making this a fantastic and rewarding art form worth study and play, and continuing to be a creator in ways that we haven't even begun to invent yet, because that's y'all's job. So thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Okay, so that concludes the meets the IFTF board. We will all be walking around in the space. If you do have any questions for us, just grab us or send us a DM, or you can follow us on Twitter, or IFTF has a website as well that has our contact details on. We're going to give it a couple of minutes before the next talk, just so I can prepare, because I'm introing. But thanks again, guys, for everything.